I'm 39 years of age. My stroke started in September. I think it was the 7th of September. I had a very terrible headache. It was a migraine, basically. I had it probably on a Tuesday. It went on for the whole day, and it went. On the following Friday, it came up again at about 8, 9 o'clock-ish in the evening. It was so bad. Uh, Went to bed, phoned a friend of mine, and I told him to try and ring me throughout the night just to make sure I was okay, which he did. When I woke up in the morning, the headache was still there, still almost as bad as it was in the evening. I didn't realize I couldn't talk at that time because I didn't talk to no one. It was on a Sunday. Went to church. It was when I got to church I realized I had a slurred speech. Came home, called a friend of mine who came down to see me. We prayed about it, and I went to the hospital, to the A&E in the evening. Got out about 8 o'clock. Told the receptionist what the problem was, and I was obviously asked to take a seat. I wasn't seen by the doctor until about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and that was when she did a series of tests, and she said I might probably be bleeding from my brain. That is the only reason that I probably would have had a slurred speech. So they kept me in. I have no idea why the stroke happened, because I lead a very healthy lifestyle, exercise quite regularly, eat fairly healthily, watch what I eat, lots of fruits and veg. So there is no pinpoint reason why I would have had a stroke. Before my stroke, I wasn't aware that African Caribbean people are more at risk of having a stroke. However, I do know that a good proportion of their diet are high in saturated fat. In West Africa, where I actually come from, we've got palm oil, which is definitely very high in saturated fat. We eat a lot of red meat, and all these could obviously contribute to people having a high blood pressure, which obviously or invariably could lead to stroke.
The African Caribbean communities are at risk of stroke, and that is due to a number of factors. The factors for stroke generally are age, sex, family history, and ethnic background. But for people from the African-Caribbean communities, it's more to do with the problems due to untreated, unmanaged high blood pressure, diabetes, and also sickle cell disease.
My son had a stroke at the age of 6. His first stroke at the age of 6 as a result of sickle cell disease. I knew that it could happen, but it wasn't something that I actually thought about, so I didn't really pay any attention to it whatsoever. I knew that, you know, generally Afro-Caribbeans are at risk of having a stroke more than other people, and I suppose that's due to the lifestyle, the food we eat, you know, just generally being more worried and trying to achieve more, you know. But you wouldn't think that for a child, really, that, you know, a child would have a stroke. As young as my child was, it wasn't something I thought would affect me. I was concerned about myself, actually, because I'm diabetic, my mum's diabetic, my grandmother was diabetic. So I knew that for me, and, you know, that there was a risk, you know, but even thinking about me, I'm thinking about when I'm 70 or 80, you know. I'm not thinking about I'm having a stroke now because I'm diabetic. I'm thinking it's something that might happen if I don't control my blood sugar, you know, properly.
Diabetes obviously could be linked with stroke. We've got a high number of people who actually have diabetes and don't even know about it. People should be getting checked very regularly because diabetes definitely could be linked to stroke.
High blood pressure is something that, you know, a lot of Afro-Caribbeans do have. And a lot of people that I've met actually just live with it as if it's just something to live with. And most don't go for treatment, or most do go for treatment and they don't continue taking their drugs. But I don't think a lot of them know that it can actually lead to them having a stroke.
The incidence of diabetes in the African Caribbean community is high. We're talking 1 in 10 men and 1 in 5 women in these communities. And we do not know why, but there does seem to be a link between the incidence of diabetes and also high blood pressure. It seems that if you have one, you get the other. And many people do not know they have diabetes. It's maybe 9 or 12 years, and they suddenly find out that they have diabetes. And it is a risk, a stroke risk, because diabetes is linked to high blood pressure. It also has an effect on the way the blood circulates round the body. And so if people have untreated diabetes and unmanaged high blood pressure, the risk for stroke is huge.
We all say we don't have time for exercise, but if we're able to at least walk for 10-15 minutes a day, that is exercise sort of chipped in during the day. If we're able, there's a lot of things that we can do to, you know, keep us fit, keep us healthy. There's foods we should be eating, foods we shouldn't be eating. With our foods, we tend to eat a lot of oil. We tend to fry. Most Africans use palm oil, and that is, I mean, if you can imagine the palm oil in a bottle, how congealed it is at room temperature, then you can imagine what it does inside your body. So it's good to cut down on palm oil, coconut oil, those sort of oils that congeal at room temperature. They're not good for us because they're high cholesterol, and obviously if your cholesterol level is high, then you know the possibilities of having a stroke later on is high too.
We know that a teaspoon of salt is all that is needed per day per adult. And in much of our foods, there are very, very high levels of salt, particularly ready prepared foods. And so if you're cooking from base, don't add salt to the cooking water. Put salt on afterwards. Simple thing like that can reduce the risk of stroke just by small adjustments to diet.
Following my stroke, I've cut down significantly on my salt intake. Sometimes I go without putting salt in my food at all. And when I think of eating something that is probably a little bit, that might be a little bit high in salt, I tend to be conscious of it throughout the day and make sure I probably go on something that is definitely very low in salt, probably just having loads of fruits and veg.
For the Afro-Caribbean community, I would say it's important that you know your genotype before you get married, before you have children. You know, it's important to know what your genotype is, and genotype is, you know, knowing what your status is, whether you have the predisposition to pass sickle cell disease onto. So we have AA, we have AS, we have SS, we have AC. I didn't know what my genotype was till I was actually pregnant with my first son. And during the maternity review, I was told I was AS. And they asked me, what's your husband? And I said, I don't know. And they asked to see him, and they tested him, and he turned out to be AS as well. So that's why we've ended up with a baby who is SS, which is full-blown sickle cell disease. So it's important, even now, the youth need to know what their genotype is and bear that in mind, because obviously things aren't done, you know, the normal way nowadays. People just go and have babies, and, you know, I've seen young girls have children who have sickle cell disease and they don't know what to do with the child. You know, they don't know where to start, you know, how to start looking after the child, you know. So prevention is better than cure. It is important that the Afro-Caribbeans know what their genotype is, especially the young ones.
Following my stroke, and with all the information and the literature that was given to me by my carers, right, by the Stroke Association, knowing fully well that eating healthily, taking regular exercises, not binge drinking, not smoking would definitely reduce your one's risk of having a stroke. I've been very conscious of things like that. I watch my diet, I take regular exercise, I don't binge drink, and I don't smoke.
If you'd like to talk to someone about the issues raised in this film, call our helpline on 0845 3033 100.